Los Angeles County Jail. 2:30 p.m. Kendra Williams sat handcuffed on a cold metal bench, wearing gray jogging pants and a faded UCLA hoodie. Sweat still clung to her neck from the afternoon run that should have ended at her car, not in a detention cell. "Hold still," Officer Reynolds said, gripping a handful of her curls. He yanked hard enough to make her eyes water. "This isn't procedure," she said quietly. "Shut up." The clippers buzzed. He pressed them against her scalp. Coarse black hair fell in heavy clumps to the concrete floor. "Look at that texture," his partner, Officer Blake, laughed. "Guess we found the real reason she was running." He pulled out his phone, recording as if it were a joke. "You're making a mistake," Kendra said, her voice steady but low. "The only mistake," Reynolds replied, "was you thinking you could talk back." The clippers whined again. Blake filmed from every angle, making sure to catch her tears. "You like your little protest videos, huh? Here's one for your followers," he sneered. Kendra stared into the lens. Her eyes burned, but her voice didn't tremble. "Tomorrow morning at 9, you'll understand the real meaning of accountability." Reynolds paused for half a second, confused. "What the hell's that supposed to mean?" Kendra didn't answer. She just looked up at the security camera mounted in the corner, the one recording everything. Timestamp, 2:30 p.m. In less than 18 hours, these officers would discover who they'd humiliated and what it cost to strip dignity from the wrong woman. 24 hours earlier. Downtown Los Angeles. 2:15 p.m. Judge Kendra Williams adjusted the sleeves of her black robe inside her chambers. At 51, she carried herself with the composure of someone who'd survived decades of male egos, political pressure, and courtroom theatrics. Her office walls told her story. Harvard Law diploma, photos with senators, and framed newspaper clippings about landmark civil rights cases she'd ruled on. 2 folders lay open on her desk. People versus Reynolds and People versus Blake, both filled with internal affairs reports and civilian complaints. 17 for Reynolds, 15 for Blake. Every single one dismissed. Her clerk, Alex, entered carrying coffee. "Your Honor, the police union just filed another motion. They're asking to move the case out of county jurisdiction, claiming you're biased." Kendra looked up slowly. "Biased?" Alex swallowed. "They said you've ruled harshly against law enforcement before." "Harshly," she said, arching an eyebrow. "I call it lawfully." Her phone buzzed, a text from her daughter, Maya. "Mom, protests downtown are getting ugly. Please don't stay late. Love you." Kendra smiled faintly, texting back, "Don't worry, baby. I'll be fine. Justice doesn't scare easily." She closed the case files and placed them neatly in her briefcase. Tomorrow morning, Reynolds and Blake would stand before her bench to be sentenced for excessive force. What she didn't know, what none of them knew, was that by noon she'd no longer be wearing her robe. She'd be wearing handcuffs. Los Angeles Police Department headquarters. 5:40 p.m. The end of shift meeting was wrapping up in the basement conference room. Captain Dorsey, thick-necked and exhausted, stood at the front with a stack of union memos. Half the room wasn't listening. Officers checked their phones, traded jokes, or scrolled through social media footage of downtown protests turning violent. Officer Jake Reynolds leaned back in his chair, arms folded. Officer Blake Morales sat beside him, restless, chewing gum loud enough to be disrespectful. Dorsey slammed the folder shut. "That's it. Tomorrow's schedule, crowd control at City Plaza. Stay sharp, body cams on, keep the optics clean. Media's sniffing around after those use of force hearings." Reynolds smiled faintly. "You mean our hearings?" The captain gave him a look. "I mean exactly that. And the union's still fighting to delay your sentencing. Judge Williams might not be friendly, but she still bleeds like anyone else. Let the lawyers handle it." Blake muttered, "She's not going to handle us lightly, that's for sure." Dorsey lowered his voice. "You two keep your heads down. No more screw-ups until this blows over. The union's covering legal fees and PR. You make my department look bad again, and not even Morrison can save you." Reynolds smirked. "We'll be saints tonight, Captain." The meeting ended. Chairs scraped, radios crackled. The smell of sweat and coffee filled the room. As they walked out, Blake nudged Reynolds. "You really think that judge is going to throw the book at us?" She wants headlines. Makes her look tough on police. Blake scoffed. Yeah? You know what'd make a better headline? Her learning what it's like to be on our side of the cuffs. Reynolds stopped walking. The elevator dinged. Careful what you wish for. They both laughed, but there was a weight behind it. Brentwood, Judge Kendra Williams' home. 7:15 p.m. Kendra sat in her study, half a dozen open folders covering her desk, each one a portrait of failure. Ignored complaints, doctor reports, citizens too afraid to testify. A framed photo of her and her late husband, Marcus, rested near her computer. He'd been a journalist, killed years earlier while covering police misconduct in St. Louis. His death was one reason she'd gone to law school. She still wore his wedding band on a chain around her neck. Her clerk, Alex, called over video chat. Judge, the union's lawyer just sent another motion. They're demanding your recusal, again. Claims of bias. Kendra didn't look up. On what grounds this time? They say your prior rulings show a pattern of hostility toward law enforcement. She gave a humorless laugh. I call it enforcing the law. They call it hostility. Alex hesitated. The press picked up the story. Talk radio's spinning it like you're leading some anti-police crusade. Kendra rubbed her temples. They're trying to rattle me. Won't work. Should I issue a public statement? No, she said firmly. Judges don't argue their cases on TV. After hanging up, she checked her phone. Dozens of unread texts from advocacy groups, law professors, journalists asking for comment. She ignored them all. The doorbell rang. Her daughter, Maya, walked in carrying a grocery bag. Mom, you need to eat something that's not from a vending machine. Kendra smiled. You sound like your father. I sound like someone who worries, Maya said, unloading food containers. I saw the news. Those protests are right by the courthouse. I know. You're not jogging there tomorrow, are you? I am. Maya stopped mid-motion. Mom, it's not safe. It's public space, Kendra said calmly. And I won't stop living because a few men in uniform forgot what their badges mean. Maya sighed, exasperated. You realize you're sentencing 2 of them tomorrow. That's exactly why I can't show fear. Silence. The only sound was the faint hum of the refrigerator. Finally, Maya sat down across from her. Dad would have told you to pick your battles. Kendra looked at her daughter, expression softening. And he'd also remind me that justice is a war, not a single fight. Downtown bar, 9 p.m. Reynolds and Blake sat in a corner booth, half drunk, laughing too loud. The TV above the bar showed live coverage from Civic Plaza, protesters chanting no justice, no peace while police lines stood ready. Blake pointed at the screen. There's tomorrow's shift. Reynolds drank. Yeah, and tomorrow morning, that judge thinks she's putting us away. You ever seen her in person? Once, Reynolds said. She looked at me like I was something stuck to her shoe. Blake grinned. Maybe you should return the favor. Reynolds leaned forward, lowering his voice. I heard she jogs downtown most afternoons. Alone. Same route. Habitual people are predictable. Blake's grin faded. You serious? Serious enough to say I wouldn't mind teaching her a little humility before court. Blake stared at him for a long moment, then laughed nervously. You're crazy. Maybe, Reynolds said, finishing his drink. But tomorrow, let's see how untouchable she really is. Brentwood, Kendra's bedroom. 10:45 p.m. Kendra sat on her bed, laptop still open, headphones in. She was reviewing video depositions, civilians describing encounters with Reynolds and Blake. The stories were almost identical. Intimidation, verbal abuse, unnecessary force. She paused one video and whispered, You'll get your justice tomorrow. On her nightstand lay a small black device, a discreet audio recorder. A gift from Maya after the threats began. Just in case, her daughter had said. Kendra carried it everywhere now, tucked into her purse during morning runs. Her phone buzzed again. Unknown number. You can't hide behind your robe forever. She stared at the message, deleted it, opened another file instead. LAPD internal group chat. 11:22 p.m. Blake, tomorrow's going to be a circus. Reynolds, let's see who ends up in the cage first. Blake, you sure about this? Reynolds, 100%. Blake, she's a judge, man. Reynolds, Not when she's in sneakers. Reynolds locked his phone, tossed it onto the nightstand, and went to sleep smiling. The next morning, sunlight washed over the city. News helicopters circled downtown. Protest crowds were already forming. At 7 a.m., Kendra tied her sneakers, secured her house key under the sole, a ritual of habit, and slipped the recorder into her hoodie pocket. Maya's text appeared on her screen. "Please call me after your run. Love you." Kendra typed back, "Promise." She stepped outside into the crisp Los Angeles air, unaware that somewhere across town, two men were already waiting for her jog to intersect with their shift. Downtown Los Angeles, 12:10 p.m. The sun hung high, sharp and white against the glass buildings. A helicopter circled somewhere above the noise of chanting crowds. Protesters filled Civic Plaza, hundreds of them, young, loud, angry, and tired of being ignored. Judge Kendra Williams jogged along 6th Street, earbuds in, keeping her steady pace. Same route she'd run for years. Same streets she'd driven to court. She'd expected signs and shouting. She hadn't expected riot shields. Lines of LAPD officers stood shoulder to shoulder in black armor, their visors down, their batons ready. The sound of the protesters' chant echoed between the buildings. No justice, no peace. Kendra slowed, pulling out one earbud. The air smelled of sweat, asphalt, and tension. She stopped at the crosswalk near the courthouse steps. A police loudspeaker barked. Crowd control zone in effect. Disperse immediately. Kendra frowned. She was just passing through. Then came the pop. One, then two. Tear gas canisters exploding near the crowd. The smoke hit her eyes before she could turn away. She coughed, doubled over, blinking through the sting. Someone screamed. A bottle shattered against a patrol car. Kendra covered her mouth and moved toward the side street, trying to get clear. She heard the heavy stomp of boots behind her. "Stop right there." She turned. 2 officers advanced, masks on, visors reflecting light. She couldn't see their faces. "Officer, I'm just trying to get to my car," she said, voice hoarse. One of them, the taller one, rested a hand on his baton. "Hands where I can see them." She hesitated, recognizing his tone before his face. When he lifted his visor, her stomach sank. "Officer Reynolds." Blake was beside him. "What's this? Another one of your protesters?" Reynolds asked, smirking. Kendra straightened her back despite the tears in her eyes. "I'm not part of this protest. I'm—" "Save it," Reynolds snapped. "We saw you throwing rocks." "That's a lie," she said calmly. "I was jogging." Blake circled behind her, pulling out cuffs. "Jogging in the middle of a riot? My car's right there." Reynolds stepped closer, blocking her path. "Attitude problem already." "I have the right to go home," Kendra said, fighting to stay composed. "You have the right to remain silent," Reynolds shot back. The cuffs clicked shut, cold metal on skin. Blake grabbed her arm roughly. Her purse hit the ground, spilling its contents, keys, phone, and a small black recorder that skidded under a parked car. Kendra's eyes followed it for half a second, realizing it was still on. "Pick up her stuff," Reynolds ordered. Blake kicked the purse aside. "Leave it. We'll catalog it at intake." Kendra drew a deep breath. "Officers, you're making a serious mistake." Reynolds smirked. "The only mistake is you not keeping your mouth shut." He guided her toward the squad car, pressing her head down to fit inside. Protesters watched, some filming on their phones. "Another one for the highlight reel," Blake muttered. A young woman nearby shouted, "She didn't do anything. Let her go." Reynolds barked, "Back off," and slammed the door. From inside, Kendra could hear the muffled roar of the crowd, the chant rising again. No justice, no peace. Inside the patrol car, 12:40 p.m., Reynolds drove fast, lights flashing, cutting through traffic. Blake checked his phone, refreshing a live feed of the protest. "Crazy out there," Blake said. "You think this'll stick?" Reynolds shrugged. "Doesn't have to. Just needs to shut people up for a while." Blake glanced at the back seat mirror. "You okay back there, sweetheart?" Kendra stared straight ahead. "You're going to regret every word of this." Reynolds laughed. "You think we're scared of lawsuits?" "Not lawsuits," Kendra said. "Truth." The silence that followed made Blake uncomfortable. County Jail, Sallyport. 1:15 p.m. The gate opened with a loud buzz. The car rolled into the concrete bay. The air was thick with exhaust and the echo of radios. Easiest arrest of the day, Reynolds said, parking. Kendra stayed still, wrists throbbing from the cuffs. Blake opened her door. Out. She stepped down carefully. Several detained protesters watched from holding cells, their faces dirty, eyes full of fear and anger. Yo, film this, one whispered to another. Kendra kept her spine straight. Years on the bench had trained her to mask fear. Officer Thompson from intake met them with paperwork. Charges: disturbing the peace, resisting arrest, assault on an officer, Reynolds recited. Assault? Thompson repeated, raising an eyebrow. Yeah, she threw a rock. Blake lied easily. Thompson looked at Kendra. Ma'am, you got ID? Before she could answer, Reynolds cut in. We'll handle processing. Thompson hesitated, uneasy. Something about her voice, her bearing, felt off. Too calm, too precise. Everything by the book, Reynolds said, forcing a smile. Intake room. 1:40 p.m. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead. Kendra stood between Reynolds and Blake as they filled out forms. She watched them falsify every line. Charges, time, description. Skip the medical check, Reynolds said. Kendra spoke quietly. That's against policy. He didn't look up. So file a complaint. Blake grinned, pulling gloves on. You'll get your turn. Kendra raised her chin. You really don't know who I am, do you? Reynolds finally looked at her. Lady, I don't care if you're the Queen of England. Kendra stared straight into his eyes. Close enough. He laughed. Not for long. Holding corridor. 2:05 p.m. They let her pass cells packed with protesters. Dozens of phones came out, filming. Someone yelled, That's messed up. She didn't do anything. Put the phones down. Reynolds barked. Kendra's calm unnerved everyone in the room. She didn't plead, didn't cry, just walked with her wrists chained, posture unbroken. At the end of the hallway, the door marked intake, search waited. Blake looked at Reynolds and smirked. You want me to handle this one? Reynolds nodded. Be my guest. Kendra stood silently as the electric clippers came to life. The hum filled the small room. County Jail, 2:15 p.m. The metal door clanged shut behind her. The sound echoed down the concrete hallway like a verdict. Kendra Williams stood handcuffed under the glare of fluorescent lights. The intake room was small, bare walls, steel table, camera in the corner. Officer Reynolds leaned against the wall with his arms crossed. Officer Blake plugged in the electric clippers, a smirk fixed on his face. Standard procedure, Blake said. Gotta make sure you're not hiding anything in that hair. Kendra met his eyes. That's not standard procedure for a misdemeanor arrest. Reynolds shrugged. Policy update. County directive. I helped write that policy, Kendra said evenly. No such update exists. Blake stepped closer, holding the buzzing clippers an inch from her temple. Well, maybe you should update your files. The first swipe cut deep. Black curls tumbled to the floor. The hum of the machine filled the silence. Each pass stripped more of her dignity, but her posture didn't break. She looked straight into the wall camera. Reynolds chuckled. Damn, look at that. You think she's crying? Blake grinned. Not yet. Kendra's voice came quiet but steady. You're both making a record you'll regret. Reynolds rolled his eyes. Lady, the only record we make is the one we write. Across the hallway, two young protesters pressed their phones between cell bars, recording through the glass slit of the door. One whispered, They're shaving her head, man. They're really doing it. Phones away. Reynolds barked. That's evidence tampering. Blake ignored him, focused on his work. Hair slid down her shoulders in clumps. You must think you're special, he said. I am, Kendra said quietly. He laughed. You're all special until the clippers come out. Then something slipped. Reynolds muttered under his breath, not thinking. Smile for the camera, Your Honor. The room froze. Blake looked up mid-cut. What did you just say? Reynolds realized too late. Nothing. Just saying. Officer Thompson, the intake clerk, dropped his clipboard. Wait, did you say Your Honor? Kendra turned slowly to face him. Half her hair gone, scalp showing, eyes sharp as glass. Yes, he did. Reynolds went pale. You're lying. Kendra's tone didn't rise, it sank. Officer Reynolds, I am Judge Kendra Williams, Superior Court of Los Angeles County. Silence. The fluorescent lights hummed. Every face in the room drained of color. Thompson took a half step back. Oh my God. Blake stammered. That's not possible. You were jogging. Kendra said. Yes. I was exercising my constitutional right to move freely in a public space. Reynolds' jaw tightened. You didn't identify yourself. I wasn't required to, she said. And you never asked. The activists behind the glass started shouting. She's a judge. They arrested a judge. Phones came up recording. Reynolds snapped. Turn those off. But it was too late. The footage was live. Kendra looked straight into the wall camera, voice firm, clear, every word measured. For the record, my name is Judge Kendra Williams. Badge numbers 4531 and 3920 have violated my civil rights, falsified charges, and subjected me to unlawful humiliation. Thompson whispered, Jesus Christ. Kendra turned to him. Officer Thompson, you're a witness now. Do your job correctly, or you'll join them. Reynolds fumbled for his radio. Dispatch, we've got a situation. Nature of emergency? The voice crackled back. Reynolds swallowed. We've arrested Judge Williams. Static filled the silence. Then, repeat that. Judge Kendra Williams. Reynolds said louder, voice shaking. She's here at county intake. The line went dead. Blake dropped the clippers. They clattered on the floor, tangled in the fallen curls. This is bad, he muttered. Kendra stared straight ahead. No, officer. This is justice revealing itself. The cell block erupted. Detainees banged on bars, shouting, Judge! Judge! They cut her hair! Thompson ran to the door. I've got to call the captain. Reynolds snapped. Nobody leaves this room. But Thompson was already gone. Kendra sat down on the bench, hands still cuffed. Calm. Controlled. Her voice cut through the chaos like a verdict. Tomorrow morning, both of you will stand before a courtroom. You'll face the same justice you've denied everyone else. Reynolds whispered, You can't. I already have. Dispatch Center. 2:37 p.m. The radio operator's voice trembled as she repeated the transmission, confirming Judge Kendra Williams detained and processed at county jail intake. Within minutes, the message spread, first to command, then to media scanners, then across every newsroom in Los Angeles. Holding area. 2:42 p.m. Chief Deputy Rodriguez burst through the intake door, followed by 3 supervisors. He froze at the sight of Kendra, half-shaved head, orange jumpsuit, eyes sharp with controlled fury. What the hell happened here? He demanded. Reynolds stammered. Mistaken identity. She didn't identify herself. Kendra interrupted, voice cold. They didn't ask. They assumed. Rodriguez turned to her, his expression horrified. Your Honor. Don't you Your Honor me, Kendra said. Process my release immediately and get internal affairs on site. Rodriguez barked orders into his radio. All units, code red. Secure the facility. No press access. Too late. Down the hallway, one protester still had her phone live streaming through the cell bars. The video already had 30,000 views. Outside county jail. 3 p.m. News van screeched to a stop. Reporters rushed the entrance, microphones ready. Judge Williams assaulted by LAPD officers, confirmed. Is this another excessive force incident? Who authorized the intake procedure? No one answered. The doors locked. Inside, Kendra stood silent while a female officer handed her back her belongings. Her purse, her phone, her hair still scattered across the floor. Reynolds sat slumped against the wall, staring at the mess he'd made. Blake muttered over and over, We're screwed. Kendra tied the county-issued scarf over her head. She looked at them one last time. You didn't just humiliate a woman, she said. You humiliated the system you swore to protect. Then she turned to Thompson. Give me my phone. He handed it over, eyes down. Kendra pressed record. This is Judge Kendra Williams. I have been unlawfully detained, assaulted, and humiliated by officers Reynolds and Morales. The evidence is on this floor. and the world is about to see it. She walked out as the door locks buzzed open. Cameras flashed outside. By nightfall, her name would trend in every corner of the internet. And by morning, the entire city would learn what happens when justice finally fights back. 3:20 p.m., Los Angeles County Jail, exterior. By the time Judge Kendra Williams stepped into daylight, the air outside was already electric. News vans ringed the block. Reporters shouted over each other. Protesters, alerted by live streams from inside, pressed against barricades, chanting her name. Justice for Kendra. Accountability now. Flashbulbs lit her face as she adjusted the county-issued scarf around her shaved head. Her expression didn't break. Calm, measured, judicial. Judge Williams, can you confirm that you were assaulted in custody? Were you targeted for your rulings against police? Do you plan to press charges? Kendra raised one hand slightly. I'll speak when the time is right, she said evenly. For now, the record will speak for itself. The crowd roared. Officers scrambled to clear a path to a waiting unmarked sedan. As she climbed in, one protester yelled, "We got your back, Judge." For the first time in 20 years, Kendra didn't feel alone. 4:10 p.m. LAPD headquarters, crisis room. Chief Dorsey stood at the head of the table, face the color of concrete. Every major commander and union representative was packed into the room. Who authorized that intake procedure? He demanded. Silence. Someone answer me. Union Rep Frank Morrison, expensive suit and smug calm, leaned back in his chair. Chief, let's not overreact. From what I understand, it was a standard search procedure that got misinterpreted. Misinterpreted? Dorsey slammed his hand on the table. They shaved a sitting judge's head on camera. Morrison's tone didn't change. She didn't identify herself. Officers acted under crowd control stress. You think the public's going to buy that? Dorsey snapped. Morrison shrugged. They'll buy whatever we feed the press first. He opened his laptop and read from an email draft. Statement. Officers involved followed protocol during a chaotic protest response. Judge Williams was treated the same as all detainees. Any suggestion of misconduct is under review. Dorsey glared. That's your spin. That's damage control, Morrison said. You let this get emotional, the department burns. Dorsey exhaled, defeated. Then God help us, because it's already burning. 5:30 p.m. CNN Los Angeles Bureau. Anchor footage cut between shaky jail videos, social media clips, and stills of Kendra in cuffs. Breaking news. Superior Court Judge Kendra Williams was arrested and allegedly humiliated during police intake earlier today. Footage from detainees shows officers forcibly cutting her hair. Commentators appeared split screen. One former cop. Procedure. One civil rights lawyer. That's assault under color of law. The hashtag Justice for Kendra hit Twitter's top 5 within the hour. 7 p.m. Brentwood, Kendra's home. Maya stood by the window as media trucks lined their street. Cameras flashed outside the gate. She turned to her mother. Mom, you're everywhere. CNN, MSNBC, even Fox. Kendra sat on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, still in shock, but not broken. Maya showed her phone. They're calling it the shaving scandal. You're trending nationwide. Kendra stared at the screen. Thousands of posts, millions of views. Clips replaying her calm face as her hair fell. Every comment a mix of rage, disbelief, and solidarity. Maya sat beside her. You want to tell your story before someone else does? Kendra nodded slowly. Yes, but not to a network. To the people. She unlocked her phone, opened the camera app, and hit record. 7:15 p.m. live stream. Judge Kendra Williams. Her voice was calm, direct. The scarf still covered her head. Today, I was arrested while exercising my right to jog through a public space. I was falsely accused, handcuffed, and physically humiliated. I did not identify myself as a judge because justice should not depend on titles. What happened to me happens to ordinary people every day, and it must end. She paused, eyes steady. To the officers who did this, tomorrow, you'll face the consequences of your own law. She ended the stream. Within an hour, the video had 3.4 million views. 9:45 p.m. LAPD Union Office. Morrison watched the live numbers climb on his laptop. Jesus, he muttered. This thing's viral. Reynolds sat beside him, pale, hands shaking. She's not supposed to talk like that. She's a judge. Morrison's voice was ice. She's a problem now, but problems can be managed. He typed a message to a media contact. Push narrative. Judge Williams joined an unlawful protest. Possible political motives. Reynolds swallowed hard. You're gonna smear her? Morrison didn't even look up. Welcome to survival, son. 11:20 p.m. Maya's office, Civil Rights Division. Maya's inbox exploded with messages. Lawyers offering support, journalists requesting interviews, victims sharing their stories. I know those same officers. They beat my brother in 2021. They cut my hair too. Said it was procedure. Please tell the judge she's not alone. She printed several and placed them in a folder labeled evidence of pattern. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. A male voice, low and calm. Tell your mother to stop talking, or she won't live to see morning. The line went dead. Maya froze, pulse racing. She ran to the living room. Mom, we just got our first death threat. Kendra didn't flinch. That means we're over the target. 1 a.m. Social Media Monitoring Center, FBI Los Angeles Field Office. 2 analysts watched the data dashboard spike red. Mentions of Kendra Williams, up 780%. Mentions of LAPD misconduct, up 1,200%. Threat keywords, kill, hang, silence, payback. Agent Sarah Carter scribbled notes. This isn't just viral outrage. It's blowing up into a movement. Her partner leaned closer to the monitor. You think she'll go public again tomorrow? Carter smirked. If she's smart, she'll go nuclear. 8 a.m. The next morning, outside the courthouse, a crowd of over 2,000 gathered. Lawyers, students, activists, judges. Signs read, if they can do it to her, they can do it to anyone. Justice has no uniform. Kendra arrived through the back entrance, escorted by federal agents. Her scarf was gone. Her bare scalp gleamed under the morning light. She looked unbowed. Cameras followed every step. Maya walked beside her, holding her arm. You ready? Kendra exhaled. I've been ready my whole career. They just finally gave me the audience. That day, the Department of Justice announced an internal inquiry. The governor called for federal oversight. The city police union doubled down on denial. And by nightfall, one truth was clear to every headline, every screen, every living room in America. Justice wasn't blind anymore. It was furious. Los Angeles Federal Building. 9 a.m. The marble lobby hummed with urgency. Cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions that went unanswered as FBI agents moved briskly through the hallways. In a 10th floor conference room, Agent Sarah Carter stood beside a digital screen displaying one name. Reynolds, Jake, Officer, LAPD. Under it, 17 civilian complaints. Beside it, Morales, Blake, Officer, LAPD. 15 complaints. Each file carried the same red stamp. Dismissed. Insufficient evidence. Carter looked at her team. We're not just investigating an arrest. We're investigating a machine built to erase accountability. Her partner, analyst Leon Chun, tapped a key. The map of Los Angeles appeared, dotted with red pins, each marking a complaint involving the two officers. Patterns clear, Chun said. 70% of incidents in South Central. Victims primarily Black or Latino. Same language in every report. Resisting arrest. Combative subject. Non-compliant. Carter nodded. Copy-paste racism. Brentwood. 10:20 a.m. Judge Kendra Williams' house had turned into a war room. Reporters crowded the gates. Inside, the living room overflowed with files, laptops, and evidence envelopes. Maya was on the phone with a civil rights lawyer. We're filing under federal statute, Section 1983, deprivation of rights under color of law. Kendra sat at her desk, reading an official document just delivered by courier. The seal of the Department of Justice was printed at the top. Subject, federal inquiry into LAPD misconduct involving officers Reynolds and Morales. Her expression didn't change, but her grip on the paper tightened. Maya ended her call. They're opening it, Mom. It's happening. Kendra looked up. Then we start with the truth. LAPD, Internal Affairs Division. 11 a.m. Captain Dorsey stared at the same document with his jaw clenched. This came straight from D.C., he muttered. Across the table, Morrison, the union rep, smirked. Federal inquiry means nothing without evidence. We'll slow it down in court. Dorsey shot him a glare. You mean bury it? Same thing, Morrison said. Dorsey's radio crackled. Captain, reporters are outside, demanding comment. Tell them to talk to the union, Dorsey snapped. Morrison smiled thinly. Already handled. Social media, 12:30 p.m. The internet had chosen sides. Hashtag Justice for Kendra dominated Twitter, but hashtag Back the Blue trailed right behind. Videos of the head shaving circulated in split screen with footage of Reynolds smiling during protests. News clips ran on loop, her composure against their laughter. A viral tweet read, "If this is how they treat a judge, imagine what they do to the rest of us." It had 8.6 million likes in 3 hours. FBI evidence room. 2 p.m. Carter opened a new folder labeled Recovered Media. Inside, the small black recorder retrieved from the storm drain near the courthouse. She hit play. Kendra's voice came through, faint but clear. Officers, I strongly advise you to verify your facts before proceeding with this arrest. Then Reynolds' reply, dripping with mockery. Oh, she's advising us now. You a lawyer, honey? The recording continued. Every fabricated word, every lie. Carter looked up at Chun. This changes everything. Brentwood, 3:15 p.m. Kendra sat with Maya and 2 visiting attorneys from the ACLU. Laptops open, evidence synced. Attorney Rivera spoke first. Your recording validates your testimony. But there's more. We subpoenaed body cam footage from that day. Internal Affairs refused. Maya frowned. On what grounds? Chain of custody issues, Rivera said. Translation, they're hiding something. Kendra folded her arms. Then we go public. Again, Rivera nodded. Careful. They're already feeding the press that you joined the protest intentionally. I joined nothing, Kendra said. They brought the protest to me. LAPD, Union Headquarters. For PM. Morrison paced his office, phone pressed to his ear. We need to control the narrative, Chief. Float something about the judge having political motives. Maybe she's tied to the reform lobby. Reynolds sat nearby, head in his hands. They're saying federal charges, man. Prison time. Morrison sneered. Relax. They don't jail cops. They promote them. Blake stared blankly at the TV, showing Kendra's live statement from the day before. She looked right into the camera, he muttered, like she already knew this was coming. Morrison killed the TV. Get some rest, both of you. Tomorrow, you'll need to act remorseful for the cameras. FBI field office. 5:45 p.m. Agent Carter scrolled through the recovered internal emails Chun had decrypted. From Chief Dorsey. To Frank Morrison. Subject, Judge Williams incident. Contain this immediately. Narrative control critical. From Morrison. To Dorsey. Already coordinating with media. Pushing protester misconduct story. From Dorsey. Do not use protester. She wasn't charged. Carter looked at Chun. They knew she was innocent. They just needed a story. 7 p.m. outside LAPD headquarters. A crowd of nearly 3,000 gathered, carrying signs. Truth has a record. Badge is not equal to immunity. Cameras from every network pointed toward the building. Kendra arrived unannounced. The crowd erupted. She stepped up to the microphones flanked by Maya and Agent Carter. Her tone was calm, deliberate, like she was back on the bench. This is not just about me. It's about every person whose dignity has been stripped by those sworn to protect it. The officers who humiliated me have a history, a documented pattern, of abuse and deceit. The evidence is real. The system that ignored it is, too. She held up a USB drive. This is the recording they tried to bury. And tomorrow, it becomes part of the official record. The crowd exploded in cheers. Cameras flashed like lightning. Union office. 7:05 p.m. Morrison slammed his desk. She's turning this into a crusade. Reynolds whispered, "What if she wins?" Morrison looked up, face cold. "Then she burns this whole department with her." Brentwood, 10:30 p.m. The night was quiet except for the low hum of news helicopters overhead. Maya, close her laptop. "You realize, Mom, they'll come after you harder now." Kendra nodded. "They already have." She looked toward the window where her reflection stared back, head nearly bare, eyes tired but unwavering. "The difference," she said softly, "is that now the world's watching." 11:58 p.m. FBI data center. Chen's computer chimed. A new alert appeared, an anonymous upload to a public drive. Title, Internal Union Comms.zip. Carter leaned over his shoulder. "What is that?" He opened the file. Hundreds of emails and payment records filled the screen. Proof of illegal overtime pay, falsified reports, hush money transfers. Chen whispered, "This isn't just two bad cops. It's a whole structure." Carter stared at the data, then reached for the phone. "Give me the U.S. attorney." Tonight, the storm that started with one arrest had become a federal case. And by morning, it would threaten to collapse one of the largest police departments in America. 1:20 a.m. Brentwood. The house was silent except for the faint hum of streetlights outside. Kendra couldn't sleep. She sat at her desk, watching the cursor blink on her laptop. Draft headlines flashed across her screen. FBI expands probe into LAPD corruption. Anonymous source leaks union emails. Every headline mentioned her name. A shadow moved across the window. She looked up, tense. Nothing but a passing car. Still, she reached for the small audio recorder on her desk, the same one that had captured her arrest. She kept it close now, a habit she didn't plan to break. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. Judge Williams, a male voice said, calm and deliberate. "You're making powerful enemies. Go silent, and this ends quietly." Kendra didn't respond. The voice continued. "Keep talking, and your daughter won't make it to work tomorrow." She hung up without a word, heart steady but jaw tight. Then she opened the voice memo app and began recording. 2:04 a.m. threat call. Male voice. Law enforcement vocabulary. Likely internal source. Her tone was dry, procedural, like dictating evidence from a bench. She saved the file and sent it straight to Agent Carter. 2:15 a.m. FBI Los Angeles field office. Carter's phone buzzed on her desk. She read the transcript of Kendra's message and cursed under her breath. "Another one?" Chen asked. "Worse. They mentioned her daughter this time." She grabbed her coat. "Wake the surveillance team. We're setting up protection detail by sunrise." 7 a.m. Maya's apartment, downtown. Maya woke to 3 missed calls and a dozen text messages, all from block numbers. "Keep your mother's mouth shut. We know where you park. Accidents happen." Her hand shook as she scrolled. Her phone rang again. This time the caller ID said Mom. She answered immediately. "Mom, are you okay?" "I'm fine," Kendra said. "I got one too. I already forwarded everything to the FBI." Maya's voice trembled. "They know where I live." "I know," Kendra said quietly. "But they're panicking. That means we're winning." 9:30 a.m. LAPD Internal Affairs. Captain Dorsey slammed his fist onto the table. "I want names. Who's leaking information?" The room stayed silent. Across from him, Morrison adjusted his tie. "Before we start throwing accusations, maybe look at your own people. Internal Affairs always had moles." Dorsey glared. "Those union emails came from your servers." Morrison smirked. "And yet the FBI's camped outside your precinct." He stood, gathering his briefcase. "You think you can fight this? You'll go down with the rest of them." "Not if I take you with me," Dorsey snapped. 11:45 a.m. Brentwood. 2 black SUVs parked quietly near Kendra's driveway. 4 FBI agents stepped out, one of them Agent Carter. "Your security detail is active," Carter said. "We'll rotate agents 24/7 until the indictments are filed." Kendra nodded. "Thank you. They won't stop with calls." Carter's tone hardened. "We know. We intercepted chatter on a private police frequency last night. Someone referred to you as the target." Maya's face went pale. "They're talking about us like it's a mission." Carter's voice was blunt. "It is. A coordinated harassment campaign. They want you isolated. Kendra looked at her daughter. Then we stay visible. 2 p.m. Los Angeles Times headquarters. Journalist Ethan Cho scrolled through his email when a new message appeared. Subject: proof you're not being told everything. No signature. Attachment: encrypted zip file. He opened it carefully. Inside were photographs. Dozens of women with shaved heads, booking photos dated over the last 3 years. Each arrest linked to Reynolds or Morales. The message included one line: "She's not the first." Ethan called his editor immediately. "We're sitting on a bombshell." 5 p.m. Union office. Reynolds sat alone, scrolling through hate messages and death threats. Some from the public, some from other cops. "You made us look bad. You embarrassed the badge." His phone rang. "Morrison, you look like hell," Morrison said. "I can't walk into a store without someone filming me." "Then stop walking into stores. Keep your head down. I'm working political connections." Reynolds rubbed his face. "They're going to throw us under the bus." Morrison's tone turned flat. "They already did. You just haven't felt the wheels yet." 8:30 p.m. Brentwood. Dinner was quiet. Kendra and Maya ate, with 2 FBI agents stationed nearby. Maya broke the silence. "You think they'll actually try something physical?" "They already did," Kendra said. "They just wore badges when they did it." The doorbell rang. Both agents moved instantly, hands to holsters. One peered through the camera feed. A box sat on the doorstep. No delivery label. Carter approached slowly, gloved. She opened it. Inside, a burned judicial robe and a single bullet casing. "Get forensics," she ordered. "Now!" Maya's hand flew to her mouth. Kendra stayed still, eyes locked on the evidence. "This isn't intimidation," she said. "It's confession." 10 p.m. FBI data center. Chen's decryption tool finished scanning Morrison's email archives. He leaned closer. "You need to see this." Carter read the message thread on his monitor. From Morrison to Reynolds. "Judge Williams needs to be reminded who runs this city. Keep it clean, nothing traceable." From Reynolds. "Understood. Personal or property." From Morrison. "Personal gets results." Carter stared at the screen. They were planning it from the start. Chen nodded grimly. And the department let it happen. 11:45 p.m. Brentwood. Kendra sat by the window, watching the flashing lights of security cars at the end of the street. Her phone vibrated with a message from an unknown number. "You think cameras can save you? We're already inside your system." She glanced toward her laptop. The screen flickered, then filled with static. A line of text appeared in white. "Delete everything or she dies." Kendra froze. Maya, her daughter, came running. "What's wrong?" The screen went black. The agents rushed in seconds later. Carter grabbed the laptop. "They've hacked you. Air gap everything now." Kendra's voice stayed calm, but her eyes hardened. "They want me afraid. Instead, they just gave me proof." 2:10 a.m. FBI field office. Carter slammed a folder on the table. "It's not random threats anymore. It's conspiracy. Union coordination, targeted harassment, attempted intimidation of a federal witness." Her supervisor looked at her gravely. "You want to escalate this to justice?" "Yes," Carter said. "Full federal protection for both women. And I want warrants, union office, personal residences, everything." "On what basis?" Carter pushed forward a photo of the box with the bullet casing. "Attempted terrorization of a sitting judge. That's domestic terrorism." The room went silent. 7 a.m. The next morning, Los Angeles. News networks blared new headlines. FBI confirms death threats against Judge Kendra Williams. Police union under federal scrutiny. More victims come forward. Outside the courthouse, hundreds gathered with candles and signs. You can't silence justice. Inside her living room, Kendra adjusted her scarf and looked at Maya. "They wanted fear," she said softly. "We'll give them exposure instead." She picked up the phone. "Get the press. We go public again." By the next morning, Los Angeles woke to a different kind of siren. Every news channel showed the same footage. FBI agents carrying boxes out of the police union office, hard drives sealed in evidence bags. Frank Morrison led away in handcuffs. Reporters shouted questions as he was shoved into a black SUV. This is a witch hunt. Morrison yelled. You can't arrest a union representative. Agent Sarah Carter didn't slow down. You stopped being a union when you funded threats against a judge. Inside the FBI field office, analysts worked through the mountain of seized files. Thousands of emails and transaction records filled the screen. Leontian scrolled through the data, muttering. Over $400,000 in fake reimbursements funneled through the union's legal defense fund. Carter leaned over his shoulder. Kickbacks for silence. They've been paying officers to keep quiet. Chun clicked another folder. More internal messages appeared, directly from Morrison's account. Coordinate with media. Discredit Williams. Push activist bias narrative. If intimidation fails, escalate. Target family. Non-lethal scare tactic. Carter stared at the line. They were planning it from the start. At her house, Kendra watched the coverage play across 3 screens. Her face was everywhere now. Judge, victim, symbol. Maya sat beside her, scrolling through endless updates. They raided Morrison's house too, she said. They found cash, burner phones, and an unregistered gun. Kendra didn't answer. Her eyes stayed on the television. The banner at the bottom read, Federal investigation expands. DOJ confirms systemic corruption probe. The doorbell rang. Agent Carter entered, holding a folder thick with documents. It's official, she said. The Department of Justice is moving forward. They want your statement on record before tonight's live interview. Kendra looked up sharply. Interview. CNN primetime. They've offered a full hour. Maya shook her head. Mom, it's too risky. Kendra stood, straightening her jacket. No, it's necessary. They've tried silence, threats, lies. Now they'll face truth. That evening, downtown traffic stopped as people gathered outside Channel 7 studio. Protesters, lawyers, students, thousands holding signs reading, Justice has a name, and we stand with Judge Williams. Inside the studio, lights flooded the stage. Kendra waited behind the curtain with Maya, Rivera from the ACLU, and Agent Carter. The host's voice echoed from the stage. Tonight, Judge Kendra Williams speaks for the first time since her unlawful arrest. The floor manager signaled. You're live in 5. Kendra stepped into the lights. Applause thundered. Dana Lewis, the anchor, smiled tightly. Judge Williams, thank you for being here. The country has followed your story closely. What do you want people to understand tonight? Kendra looked straight into the camera. That this isn't about one arrest. It's about what happens when accountability threatens power. Dana leaned forward. You've claimed there's evidence of a coordinated effort to silence you. Do you still stand by that? I don't claim it, Kendra said evenly. I prove it. She set a small flash drive on the table. This contains communications between police leadership and union executives. They plotted to discredit me, to frame me as a political threat, and to terrorize my family. That's not misconduct. It's organized corruption. The studio went silent except for the hum of the cameras. The feed jumped to millions of screens across the country. To every citizen watching, Kendra continued, you deserve a system that fears lies, not truth. They tried to take my dignity, my safety, even my silence. Instead, they gave me proof, and I intend to use it. Dana's eyes widened. Judge, are you saying you'll personally pursue prosecution? Kendra's voice was calm, final. Not pursue, deliver. The audience erupted into applause. Viewership spiked instantly. Twitter flooded with hashtag reckoning for justice, hashtags trending in 30 countries. In an office across town, Morrison watched the broadcast from a holding cell, pale and sweating. She's destroying everything, he muttered. His lawyer whispered, she's not destroying it. She's exposing it. Later that night, as the studio lights dimmed, Kendra walked through the parking garage toward her car. Maya and Carter followed close behind. A dark sedan sat idling near the exit. Its engine revved once, headlights flaring. Carter noticed first. Stay back. The driver's door opened, and Detective Angela Reeves stepped out, holding a black evidence bag. Her voice shook. Judge Williams, I've been undercover for 2 years. I have the files they hid. Everything, videos, reports, payment trails. Kendra's relief was visible. You did the right thing. Reeves nodded, clutching the bag tighter. They know I'm talking. We need to move fast. She barely took 2 more steps before the shot rang out. The sound tore through the garage, bouncing off concrete. Reeves dropped instantly, the bag scattering across the floor, flash drives, photographs, police IDs spilling in every direction. Carter drew her weapon, scanning the shadows. The sedan screeched away into the night. Kendra knelt beside Reeves, pressing a hand to her shoulder. Blood spread fast across the concrete. Reeves tried to speak, breath shallow. "It's all in there," she whispered. Then she went still. Maya was frozen, tears streaking down her face. Carter grabbed her radio, shouting for backup. Kendra looked at the evidence scattered around her feet, then at the lifeless detective who had risked everything to bring it. Her voice broke the silence, steady, cold, and clear. "They wanted silence," she said. "Now the whole world will hear her." That night, headlines would scream again. Undercover detective killed in police corruption case. Evidence found at scene links shooting to Union Network. Judge Williams vows to finish what Reeves started. And for the first time, even those who doubted her began to believe. This wasn't just scandal. It was war. The morning after the shooting, Los Angeles felt like it was holding its breath. Every news network played the same footage on repeat. Detective Angela Reeves' body being loaded into a coroner's van, police tape fluttering under the harsh glare of television lights. At her home, Kendra watched the coverage in silence. Maya stood behind her, arms crossed, eyes red from sleeplessness. The anchor's voice filled the room. Detective Reeves, a 2-year undercover agent in the LAPD Internal Affairs Division, was shot dead last night in the Channel 7 parking garage after meeting with Judge Kendra Williams. Sources confirm she was carrying evidence related to the ongoing corruption investigation. Maya's voice was hoarse. "They killed her for helping us." Kendra didn't blink. "No, they killed her to scare us." She turned off the television and faced her daughter. "That means they're desperate. Desperate people make mistakes. That's where we'll find them." At FBI headquarters, Agent Sarah Carter slammed a folder onto the conference table. This wasn't random. The shooter knew where she'd be. Someone leaked the meeting. Her supervisor frowned. "You're suggesting an internal breach?" "I'm saying it's fact," Carter replied. "Reeves only told 2 people, me and Judge Williams." Chen looked up from his laptop. Phone records show a call from the union's burner line to an unlisted LAPD extension 10 minutes before the shooting. Carter's voice hardened. "We trace that number, we find a trigger man." By noon, crowds had gathered outside the courthouse again. Protesters held signs that read, "Justice for Angela. No more silence. Protect those who protect truth." Reporters surrounded Kendra's front gate. Some shouted questions, others pleaded for comment. "Judge Williams, was Detective Reeves working with you directly? Do you fear for your life? Will you continue to testify?" Kendra stepped forward, her face pale but steady. She spoke without notes, her voice carrying over the noise. "Angela Reeves died trying to bring truth to light. The people who killed her believe fear is stronger than justice. They're wrong. I will testify. I will release the evidence she gave me. And I will not stop until her killers, and everyone who protected them, are brought to trial." The crowd roared. Phones lifted. Her words streamed live to millions. At the Los Angeles Times, investigative reporter Ethan Cho scrolled through the files Reeves had handed off before the meeting. Dozens of case reports, surveillance photos, signed memos. Every one connected to Reynolds, Morales, or Morrison. He looked at his editor. She wasn't just investigating them. She was documenting a network, bribes, fake arrests, extortion, internal payoffs. This goes way higher than anyone thought. The editor leaned forward. "How high?" Ethan hesitated. "The chief's office." That evening, Kendra met with Agent Carter and ACLU attorney Rivera in her living room. The evidence Reeves left behind lay spread across the table. Blood-stained envelopes, flash drives labeled with dates, a small notebook filled with handwritten notes. Rivera said quietly, "This is enough to trigger a federal indictment." Maya looked at the files. "Then what are we waiting for?" Carter shook her head. "The DOJ wants to move carefully. They'll try to control the narrative. Kendra's tone turned sharp. Control it? They lost that right when a woman died in a parking garage. Rivera sighed. You go public again, it'll ignite another firestorm. Good, Kendra said. Let it burn. That night, she appeared unannounced on live television. No makeup, no notes, just a plain black blazer and her steady voice. You've heard about Detective Reeves. You've heard the rumors, the threats, the half-truths. But here's what you haven't heard. She wasn't the first to die for exposing corruption in this city. She was simply the one who refused to stay quiet. She held up Reeves's blood-stained notebook to the camera. This is her record, her handwriting, her courage. It names officers, union leaders, and city officials who build a system that rewards abuse and punishes integrity. Tomorrow, these files will be turned over to federal prosecutors. And tonight, they'll be uploaded for the public to see. The broadcast cut to black. Within minutes, encrypted folders began spreading across the internet, uploaded to whistleblower sites, mirrored on social media, downloaded by millions. By dawn, the world had seen what Reeves died for. Bank records, emails, surveillance photos, dozens of internal memos proving years of cover-ups, payouts, and coordinated harassment. The Justice Department issued a statement before sunrise. Effective immediately, the United States Attorney's Office has opened criminal proceedings against current and former members of the Los Angeles Police Department and Police Union. In one night, everything shifted. Maya found her mother on the porch, watching the sun rise through the thin fog. For the first time in days, Kendra looked calm. You did it, Maya whispered. Kendra shook her head. No, Angela did. They stood in silence as the first rays of light hit the quiet street, soft, cold, and clean. Then Kendra said, almost to herself, truth always costs something. The question is whether you're willing to pay it. By the end of the week, Los Angeles looked like a city on trial. News helicopters hovered over downtown as convoys of black SUVs carried arrested officers into federal custody. 27 names appeared in the first wave of indictments, including 3 captains, a deputy chief, and Frank Morrison himself. Reporters filled the courthouse steps. Cameras flashed as Agent Sarah Carter and her team unloaded boxes labeled U.S. versus the Los Angeles Police Union. The headlines were blunt. Corruption network exposed. Federal charges filed in Judge Williams' case. LAPD's House of Cards falls. Inside her chambers, Kendra sat quietly at her desk. Her nameplate, once polished daily, was scratched and dull. Her office looked less like a workspace and more like a fortress of paperwork. Court orders, subpoenas, affidavits. Maya entered holding a stack of new documents. The Attorney General wants you to testify before Congress next month, she said. Kendra didn't look up. They want a spectacle. They want accountability, Maya corrected, or at least to look like they do. Kendra finally met her daughter's eyes. I've been part of this system my whole life. They'll clean the surface, not the foundation. Maya's voice was quiet. Then make them dig deeper. The first day of hearings drew global attention. Networks ran live feeds, headlines scrolled nonstop. Protesters gathered outside with banners that read "Justice Delivered" and "No More Immunity." Kendra entered the courtroom, flanked by federal marshals. Her presence silenced the crowd instantly. Across the aisle, Frank Morrison sat in an orange jumpsuit, his usual arrogance replaced by exhaustion. Reynolds and Morales avoided eye contact. The prosecutor stood. Your Honor, the government calls Judge Kendra Williams to the stand. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. A judge called as witness in the very courthouse where she'd once presided. Kendra swore in and faced the courtroom. Her voice was calm, every word measured. For years, Officers Reynolds and Morales abused their power. Frank Morrison used the union to shield them. Complaints were buried. Victims were silenced. The department's leadership looked the other way because corruption kept the system running smoothly. The defense lawyer stood. Your Honor, objection, speculation. Kendra turned to him without missing a beat. I'm not speculating, counselor. I'm reading from their own emails. She handed the clerk a folder. Inside were copies of messages between Morrison and department officials discussing narrative management and disciplinary shielding. The judge presiding, Chief Justice Hannah Ortiz, scanned the papers, her expression darkening. Objection overruled. Outside the courthouse, the crowd erupted as the documents were released publicly. Television anchors read them live, on air. In one message, Morrison writes, "We can't afford to lose another officer to discipline. Just make the file disappear." Another reads, "If she keeps pushing reform, we make her look unstable." By afternoon, social media exploded. Hashtag System on Trial overtook every platform. That evening, Kendra returned home to find Maya asleep on the couch, the TV still playing. The news showed footage of protests spreading to Chicago, Atlanta, and New York. Judges and lawyers across the country were calling for independent oversight boards. Kendra turned down the volume and sat beside her daughter, exhaustion finally catching up with her. Maya stirred. "You okay?" "I'm tired," Kendra admitted, but not finished. 2 days later, the DOJ filed its second wave of indictments, 36 more names, including Chief Dorsey. The mayor called an emergency press conference, promising complete structural reform. But behind closed doors, political allies began to turn on each other. Memos leaked, deals collapsed, and careers ended overnight. Kendra returned to her courtroom after weeks of testimony. The same marble floors, the same wooden bench, but the silence felt different now. It wasn't fear or authority. It was reckoning. Maya stood near the door, watching as her mother adjusted her robe. "You really think change will stick this time?" Kendra smiled faintly. "It has to start somewhere. It might as well start here." She took her seat. Court is in session. Across the city, television screens replayed her image. The shaved head had grown back slightly, short and natural, but her presence was sharper than ever. Calm, unshaken, unafraid. The anchor spoke her name the way people once said landmark case. The Williams hearings have reshaped national conversation about police accountability. Her testimony exposed a culture of immunity that reached into politics itself. And through it all, she never stopped showing up. That night, when she finally left the courthouse, the plaza outside was filled with candlelight. Thousands stood silently, holding photos of victims whose names had appeared in Reeves's files. Kendra stepped to the microphone and spoke softly, almost to the night itself. Justice doesn't collapse overnight. It crumbles piece by piece until someone decides to stop the breaking. Today wasn't victory. It was a beginning. The crowd stayed silent for a moment. Then one voice shouted, "Thank you, Judge." Others followed, louder, until the plaza shook with applause. Maya stood beside her, whispering, "They're not cheering for you, Mom. They're cheering for hope." Kendra nodded. "That's all I ever wanted them to cheer for." As the lights dimmed across the city, the last headline of the night appeared on every screen. The Williams Act passes committee. National Police Accountability Bill moves to Congress. The movement had a name now. The reckoning had become reform. And the woman who started it, just by refusing to bow her head, finally walked home in peace.